take a look here, make sure it's working. Gotta refresh everything. We got lots of comments already going on. Thanks for joining in on the discussion, you guys. That's awesome. Sweet. It looks like it's going, yeah. I'm just going to skip over this. Yeah, we already got Cammie here. Hi, Cammie. Welcome, Cammie. Nice to see you in the comments. Let me just test the sound really quickly. Thanks for joining in on the discussion, you guys. Sweet. Sounds great. Awesome. Well, as you guys can tell, I am visiting Abigail again up in Idaho. It's been a lot of fun. Been here most of the weekend. And I'm excited for this live. We're going to kind of do it a little bit different. She's had lots of opportunities to ask me questions about the cult that I grew up in. And so for this live, we're going to kind of let her interview me a little bit. Before we dive into that, though, I just want to acknowledge all the people that have commented. We had Sarah being the first one to join in the discussion and comment. We also got Caitlin, Melissa, and my sister Cammie. Thanks for being here, you guys. I really appreciate it. Awesome. So we'll just kind of dive right into it and let you kind of take the lead if you're okay with it.
Yeah. So. I'll be honest, I am a little nervous because it's like
I still have questions for you, so don't worry. We'll still be able to make it into a discussion and everything.
Well, what I want to do is I want to like represent like just a basic kind of like outsider, you know? Like if someone were to interview
someone that's like left a polygamous group and stuff like that.
So I try to kind of put myself back into the place where we were 7 years ago and remember some of those questions that I was asking you.
Yeah, because Abigail's got a very unique perspective because she has like cousins and some relatives that are from the group, and so she's been able to see it firsthand, what it's like kind of distantly watching people in that group, people that she knows and has kind of like grown up around and things like that.
Do you think, I don't know, do you think it's, I'm asking you and them, like, do you think it's different for me versus any other person? Like, because we're cousins, but am I considered any different than just a stranger who is learning about a cult for the first time? You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's a really good question, though. Because I think everyone's got different like views or like different things will shock different people depending on like what kind of upbringing they've had in comparison. So.
It's just like, well, for me, it's hard. I mean, like, just putting yourself in any situation, you know, and just trying to think about all the, I don't know. It's just, is it easier for somebody like me who's related to somebody rather than just somebody who's like, oh yeah, there's people out there or whatever. It's no big deal. But for me, it was just kind of...
I would definitely say yes, though, because, for example, you got to go to one of the Kingston Polygamous Group dances that they put on, and I feel like that will kind of give you an inside peek that most people don't get to see that. No one's seen how it's just in some, like, you know, dusty little warehouse, and they're doing these dances, and that's where they have the church services. You kind of have had an inside peek to what at least the Kingston Polygamous Group looks like, where their functions are. So I feel like that'll help you to come up with more questions and to kind of like know what types of things to ask and stuff like that. So
it's interesting because to me, I feel like going to those events, like I knew what I was going to, but I felt more natural because I was going with family, you know. But if anyone else were invited, like I wonder if they would feel like just different than I felt, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like for me, I don't know, I felt like there was more, like the people in the church were more nervous than I was because I was just like, you know, there was no pressure on me. I was just there looking. I was the new person, you know, I was just, but for them, it was like.
But you must have been like at least a little bit shocked, right? Like.
Oh yeah, well I mean like anything new thing for the first time, you know what I mean? I guess. Anyway, I just remember. I mean, out of all the things I try to remember, I just remember distinctly like just being so like mind blown and everything, you know, just like. And I just, no matter how many questions I think I asked, I feel like I still came up with more. And even to this day, it still blows my mind the things that you guys will say, and I'll be like, for real? like it's just kind of wild. And anyway, it's wild that like my dad hid it. Well, I wouldn't say my dad, but it was hidden from me for so long until like you were the one who brought it up with me. It's like, why didn't our parents talk about it more? Or why wasn't, you know? Anyway, so.
And I think that comes down to the whole walls that are always being built, you know? They're very secretive. They're very like sticks to themselves.
But why are they? Is that really the reason? Because I remember like your mom not being so like, oh, okay, you like not so shy about it. She's like, you want to come to church? You know, just like.
Yeah, but she didn't tell you it was a polygamous organization, right?
Well, I
She
knew
just said come to
when I
church.
went it was, but I
Okay.
knew honestly I was more confident in going because I knew at that time that you wanted to leave.
Uh-huh.
You know, so
Yeah.
it was like.
Okay, so you were just kind of going there to scope it out. You weren't
Well,
worried
there's
at all that
no.
they were trying to like recruit
No,
you or anything like
no,
that?
no, because it's like. I mean, it was a little weird knowing that, you know. But I mean, well, what could have they done? Put a net around me and lock me in a cage? Like, no, they weren't gonna do that. So what was the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave at the end of the day, and nothing would have been different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, anyway.
Really
So
quickly though, I want to say thanks so much for the donation, Denise. She donated, so that's
yay,
awesome. I really
that's
appreciate it.
nice.
She's always one of the first ones to donate every week, so it's so nice.
Anyway, so I hope I have some good questions. And I think it'll be fun interviewing Eskel. Because you got to interview me.
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay. So I want to know, like, when was there a specific moment, or what was like the milestones, that you remember leading up to like when you knew that polygamy wasn't right for you?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Definitely it started around like 13 or 14, but I feel like that was mostly just like teenagers like rebellion, you know, and like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really like the way my parents were raising me, but that just leaded me into questioning things, into like looking more into it. It was really when my older sister Amanda left that I was like, wow, like we can leave, like that's a possibility. Whereas beforehand, it was so much as like I didn't really know any outsiders. I didn't know anyone personally that had experienced leaving successfully and it actually working out, because we're constantly told that we're gonna die or something if we leave, you know. And so as a young person, you believe that. And then so for me, it was going through that rebellious stage and then seeing someone successfully leaving that made me really see, like, actually view my religion and the people around me in a way as in like, is this what I want? Rather than before, it was like, this is what I have. I have to just live it. And so that really piqued my interest and made me actually start to question things.
So it just made you question, like, why am I here,
Mm-hmm.
kind of?
Yeah, just starting the questioning. And I think really that's where it all starts. Because once you start to question it, it's very easy to see that there's lots of issues and things that are wrong with it. So I don't think that was the hard part, figuring out that it obviously wasn't the true kingdom of God. It was just hard to get started on questioning it, or like going against the man above me, like questioning their authority and stuff like that. That was really hard in the beginning. But once I started doing that, it was very easy to see that there was a lot of secrets being kept, a lot of things that they were doing that was very shady, and that I definitely didn't like. So,
Can you get more into detail about what exact things that you didn't like that they were lying about that just didn't make sense to you?
mm-hmm. Well, one that I bring up a lot, and this one I remember even going to my friends in the polygamous group and asking them, and being so shocked that they didn't want to find out or like question it and stuff like that. And it was simply asking, for example, they always say you need 3 wives to go to heaven. And I remember being like, okay, like I was taught that my whole life, so it clicked with me. I was like, okay, 3 wives, perfect. And then seeing people that had 4, 5, 6 wives, all the way up to 20 wives, then I was like, wait a second. If there's so few women in the group, we're all trying to get those 3 wives we need to go to the celestial kingdom. Why are people taking more than they share, more than they need? And I was so confused about that. And it just blew my mind. And when I started questioning it, it just seemed like nobody wanted to have that discussion and really get involved with it. And so that was one thing, just one of the many, that made me just really start wondering or realizing that there's just things that they're not fully addressing, or things that they're just doing without really having a reason sometimes.
So forgive me if I'm wrong, but where you're saying that basically it was just kind of like, I'll tell you what you need to know, and don't ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's very much like that, because sometimes I feel like they're doing stuff and they don't even really know why. Mm-hmm. So they'll just be like, they'll tell you obviously what their doctrine is and what you need to do, like live polygamy to go to heaven and stuff like that. But then they're really bad at basically staying true to not only their beliefs, but like their lifestyle. That people will be able to like have a lot more money than other families, and they won't actually live the consecration that they are teaching and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of examples like that.
So did you ask questions like that? Like, how come so-and-so has more money, obviously more money than somebody else, and they didn't have an answer for that?
Yeah, there's so many times where you can go. And a big thing is, like, who do you ask, too? Because if I would go to my dad, and my dad didn't find it like a good enough question or worth, like, looking into, he would just stop it. And, like, couldn't do anything else about it because he's the one above me. He's the one in control. And so a lot of the times, if I couldn't make it worth it, his time or his while basically to research it or whatever, then it couldn't go anywhere even if I wanted it to. So
interesting. Yeah, that would be very frustrating. It's like, well, you're not going to give me answers, then I'm going to go somewhere where they will give me answers.
Exactly. Yeah, it can be tough.
Interesting. So how did your goals change, like, and again, specific ones from when you were in the order till now? And it doesn't really have to be like in business or in personal goals. Like, is there any big that you can distinctly remember? Like, basically, were you different? How are you different in the cult versus now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I like that you say goals because that is definitely huge. Because I don't want 12 kids anymore. That's a big one. In the group, in the group, every Sunday school lesson, everything's about having kids.
You just always knew you were going to have, like, just
Well, in the group, I wouldn't have even put a number. It's always, I want as many as I can have.
Is that what they say?
That's what the answer is. That's what all the Sunday school answers are. That's what you just say in all of the classes. And so it's like, growing up, they make it a huge priority. Make sure you're having kids, just popping them out every single year, and then you can like check that off of your checklist basically. So things like that. My priorities have shifted.
How many kids did you have this year? I had 3.
Yeah, it's funny the type of like bragging that they do inside of the group, but
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. That's funny. But yeah, I think that's a huge one. One thing that I found very new is like within the group, I feel like it's very hard to have a lot of self-care and like really like ponder and think about how you're going to, first of all, be successful, but even just like be healthy and live like a fulfilling life. And in the group, I remember oftentimes then they would talk about it as if that's like a very selfish thing to do. So one thing that I really like about being on the outside is my perspective of like taking care of myself and like actually wanting to fully get to know myself and just to live a healthier life. I think that's definitely changed a lot. And I really appreciate that because not only am I physically a lot like healthier and like take good care of myself, but I feel like mentally I understand myself a lot more and I give myself like the time that I need and the proper like mental help that I need to just be confident with myself, to be able to be satisfied with the life that I'm living. And I really like that a lot.
That's interesting. I like that. Like more just putting yourself first, because that's not necessarily selfish sometimes. Which is funny if I'm jumping to conclusions, but like I see a lot of, well, is it a stereotype that a lot of, like, for instance, your dad likes to go overboard on like his fasts or his cold plunges and hot plunges and stuff. So in that sort of way, he's kind of obsessed with health, right? But then in other ways, he's like, I don't know. I guess, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of like.
No, I see your point. Because obviously everyone is selfish. It just depends on what specific things you want to pinpoint to be like, oh, they're selfish in this way or that way or whatever, you know? Everyone, you have to be able to take care of yourself. And I feel like the order is just really good about like always pointing that out and making people feel bad about it when it's not necessarily supposed to make you feel bad, you know?
So I guess to be more blunt, like, so if somebody wasn't able to take a shower that day, was that not necessarily looked like as a bad thing because they weren't taking that time for themselves, or versus somebody who actually got to do their hair that day, and was one favored more than the other?
Oh, that's a good point. I think like amongst the parents, then it could definitely have been seen that way. I do remember there was one time they literally gave a talk about how you should shower every single day. Because I think it was probably becoming a problem within the group or something. But they had a talk about personal hygiene and taking care of yourself because people just weren't doing that very well.
Do they say cleanliness is next to godliness? I mean, I'm just curious.
Oh,
I don't know if that's
they don't use that.
They don't use that at all. They don't believe it.
They they don't even have temples, you know, so they don't have like that whole, you know, like God's home is like a clean home or something like that, you know.
So where do you do sacred ordinances?
In a dusty little warehouse.
What better place to do it? Do you want to take a chance to read some of the comments if you want?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see what Cammie's been commenting a lot. She says, Sorry. She's saying, I once brought a friend of mine from public junior high to one of the order dances, and she pointed out some interesting things that was obvious too, LOL. Yes, isn't that funny, Cammie?
What are some things that she said? I'm curious.
Well, I remember you saying something about like your church is in a warehouse, and in my head I was like, all churches are in a warehouse. This is normal. So until someone from an outside perspective told me that, then I started looking around and being like, why is there like, like there would be like cotton curtain things just hanging across the ceiling through all the wooden bars and stuff. And I started looking and being like, what the heck? This is so weird.
Why did they feel like it needs to be in a warehouse? Like, what is...
Well, they didn't think that it needed to be. There was just everyone. They wanted everyone to be at the church meeting. So that was the biggest building like that the church owned.
But don't they have different meetings now? They have to meet at different times now?
Well, now, yeah. Now they kind of like have a morning session, an afternoon session or something. So like they can split it up a little bit.
Interesting.
But
when you finally went to church... Like, what did you think? Like, oh, this is so nice? Or like...
Well, yeah. Actually, one of the first churches that I visited was the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, this is so nice. Like,
really?
Compared to ours, like, everything just looked... First of all, it was very clean, but it was an actual building, It was like, the seats were actually meant to be, like, in rows and everything. In the Order Church, I remember it being so funny because you would have a row of chairs and not a single chair would be the same as the next. Like, it looked like they just... collected all of the leftover chairs from some like IKEA sale or something. I don't know. Just a bunch of random chairs. It was definitely interesting.
Well, you lived in Utah, so I'm sure you passed lots of church buildings all the time, right? Were you ever like, what's...
I don't know. Most of the times I didn't know that they were churches other than the temples. But you know the story of that. We'd always be like, oh, that's a beautiful temple. Can't wait till it's ours one day. And we just thought we would somehow inherit all of the LDS temples.
Are you serious? Mm-hmm. How? Like, just take it over somehow?
I don't know. Well, like, they think the order is going to get so big and be like the main church of the world. And then at that point, like, it'll just become natural. I don't know. The churches will become ours. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
That's what they would say anyways. And I know from an outside perspective it makes no sense, but in the church it was like, yeah, if this is God's church, they'll just give us those temples.
See,
for
this
sure.
is so scary how like people can convince themselves of the wildest things. And I'm like, are you okay? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
It's
that's
definitely,
me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. But let's see.
There's cult members going around thinking that they're going to own those temples one day.
Yep, they're gonna have to fight over them, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, that is
funny. A lot of people asking, Cami, what are some of the things your friend noticed? Yeah, I think that would be cool to point them out because I guess I don't know if it was you, but I do remember one person saying, "Why is the stage like?" There was something in the stage that was like you could tell it was made up of like what looked like, man, what are those wooden square things that they pallets? It looked like it was like made up of pallets. Because the little stage they had for people to go up and give their talks or whatever was just like really small and looked like it was going to fall apart and stuff like that. It was kind of funny.
Well, one personal thing I guess I can say, because like girls, you always like dream of your... Sorry, to find a good one. Sitting right next to your husband in church and stuff like this. But then, like, there's your dad and there's 2 wives sitting next to him. But he's got a 3rd wife. So where was she? Like, poor...
Well, if she wasn't the favorite wife, then she would be, like, way down a few rows somewhere. Like,
how
you have
sweet.
No idea.
How romantic. I feel so much for those people. I mean, I guess if that's all they know, then that's all they know. But, I mean, that just sounds, forgive me, but sad.
Yeah, like, I wonder if some people had an actual system where it was like, I don't know, each wife would be on each side, and then if there's a 3rd, it would be right next to that one or something. I don't know.
Switch.
But maybe I don't know. I don't know how that works. I just know
you can
with
hold
our
my foot,
family,
and you guys can hold my hands.
Okay. Oh man, that's pretty funny though. But Cami responded. She said my friend asked me why there were so many old guys dancing with young girls. Yeah, that's one thing that would instantly creep people out because think about it. If you are never technically not single in a polygamous community, you can always keep dating these girls or going on dances. It's kind of their version of dating. So there's old people. No matter how old they are, they can still go to dances and dance with anybody. As young of a girl as they possibly want. Anyone they want to, they can go and dance with. It's like, looks like grandpas dancing with their granddaughters. Like, it is creepy.
So did you get an answer to that when you asked, like, so why, if 3 is the max, why do you feel like you need more? Did you ever get a good answer for that?
Eventually, they gave an answer that was somewhat along the lines of basically being like, oh, there's not enough righteous men. There's more righteous women, so some of us are going to have to take on the burden of taking way more wives because we're the only righteous men. So they were the only righteous ones, but all those boys who couldn't get married were not righteous? theoretically, in their answer that they gave me, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody was having trouble getting married, they were just like, oh, you need to be more
You're
righteous.
not righteous. Pretty much, yeah, honestly, that is the answer for so many things, though. If you're, like, struggling in even school or whatever it might be, it's like, you need to be more righteous. If you're not getting married, you need to be more righteous.
What is
not,
more righteous? I guess just be more obedient. Just keep listening to whatever they're saying or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so.
How manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I guess.
Just give them more money, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
Crazy. But, okay, let's see what else Cammie said. Oh, Sally says, evening, Eskel. What's up, Sally? Thanks for tuning in. Cammie says, I didn't even tell her we believed in polygamy at that time. I was like, that's weird. Wait, yeah, Cammie, you invited one of your friends from public school to the order dance and didn't even tell them that there was in a polygamous organization?
Yeah, how did that work?
That's interesting. Maybe that's the only way you could get them to come, probably. I wonder if they would have been so
Were you just
scared.
like, oh, we're just hanging out and I'm going to a dance and you want to come with me? And sure, I'll go with you. It was just kind of like
Hey,
casual
Kyle
like
Grant
that?
says, Cammie, I like your podcast. Very interesting topics. Nice. Kyle Grant is funny. So he used the name Kyle Grant because
Kyle
Amanda's fake dad is Kyle Grant.
Yeah.
But I met up with Kyle Grant and he's a pretty funny guy,
okay.
actually. But,
that's funny.
remember to check out Eskel's channel. Oh, thank you, Denise. She's putting in plugs for me. That's awesome. We got 62 people watching live right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to add in the discussion. We're going to be going through some more questions, trying to answer as many as we can. Cammie says, my dad lost both his parents to cancer, one sister to giving birth at 15, two sisters for mystery reasons that nobody can agree on, and a brother as a teen. Yeah, that's true. My dad's family has a lot of interesting deaths. It's kind of wild, but
15.
Cammie says, probably too much comfrey, because comfrey equals cancer. If you guys don't know what comfrey is, the order grows this plant called comfrey. It's just this weird green thing, and they blend it up into drinks and in whatever, and they eat it all the time. They think it's like got healthy, magical purposes. It's kind of funny. But
where did they get that from? Why do they think it's good?
Man, there's a whole story behind it. Like they'll tell you the whole history behind it, and like it involves like the leader getting leaded by the spirit and like almost dying and that plant saving him and all this stuff. It's whatever. But long story short, the leader found the plant, and then someone that was like a plant expert, I guess, said it's a poisonous plant. Don't eat it. It'll kill you. And the leader ate it anyways, which, first of all, why? I don't know. He just did. And it didn't kill him. Apparently, it wasn't as poisonous as the herbalist said. And so he's all like, God told me this, and now it's what we should have all the time. It's like this magical plant. So they drink it all the time. But,
interesting.
Yeah.
Is it good? Did you ever drink it?
I drink it. It's honestly, it's like if you just took grass and put it in water and blended it up. That's what it tastes like. So it's not like super gross, but you know, it's like eating grass. If you want to feel like a horse for a day, I guess. But
wheatgrass. So I kind of want to know like how your relationship with cult members are now.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, do you have friends that are still in the order? Do you like? I guess, and more in general too. So like when you see order members out in public, do they treat you any differently?
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Because I still live very close to like the central point of all of the Kingston people. It is a little weird because I grew up in there, so I still have similar like tastes to them. And like one of their favorite restaurants is this restaurant called Zupa's, and so I go there a lot too because I like it as well because it's like kind of supposedly healthy like soups and salads. And very often times I'll go there and I'll see people there. In fact, I saw Brother David there last time I was there.
Did you say, were you like,
two
hi?
girls. But
you probably didn't say hi.
No. There was one time I was at Zupa's and there was two order girls there and they saw me and they were just like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Oh,
and
nice.
like they waved at me because I don't think that they knew who I was, or I don't know, because they were like, they just looked at me, and I guess maybe I still look a little like an order person because they were just like, oh, hey, and then they just left.
You think all order people look alike?
Kind of, like when you go, you can kind of see, because they're all related. We all have similar features, for sure, and every single one of them are white, so you can kind of point them out, and you can tell. But
interesting. I lost my train of thought. So it's not like like we can't, like, don't talk to them, or it's not like befriend them. It's just kind of like casual for the most part, I guess.
Well, it's like the rule of the group is that they're not really supposed to associate with me because I'm worse than an outsider. I'm a son of perdition because I knew the truth and I left. I denied it. But the thing is, it's very hard for them to. First of all, I think that's crazy for them to do that. But it's very hard for them to even do that if they theoretically needed to, because how would they decipher me from maybe a brother or someone that is, still in the group when there's so many people? It's very hard for them to notice. It's very likely that those people that saw me at the restaurant thought that I was one of my brothers, or even one of my half brothers that looked very similar to me, and they could have just thought I was that person, Okay. So it's like, I don't know. It's very weird that they are so like stingy about like, who they can like basically be nice to, when really I think they should just be nice to everybody.
Is it just kind of like, you're not supposed to associate yourself with bad things and now you are considered a bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So just to stay away from bad things, kind of?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. Do you have any... Well, I guess that's kind of one of my future questions we can get to, but is it... Okay. Is there one thing that you miss about being in the cult, if you could say anything?
One thing that I miss? Yeah, there were definitely things I missed, especially as a kid. I remember it being so cool when we'd get dropped off at like one of the houses, because then it would be like tons of half siblings to just go run around with and play. And I did kind of like that there were so many kids that you could just get lost in it. It was like if you just wanted to go climb a tree, you could go climb a tree, and you had at least 2 hours before anyone noticed that you were even gone. So you could just go roam and do whatever you wanted. And then there were other perks. Like, it was nice to be able to, of course, feel like everybody in the church was like, your brother or your sister. Like, you were all related. You were all cousins. You all kind of knew each other. That, like, really, if you wanted to, you could go to anybody's house and just, like, go and hang out there. Or, like, I don't know, go do stuff with different people in the group. You had lots of people that, even if they maybe didn't necessarily like you, they kind of had to hang out with you because, like, you're related to them. And a lot of the times, like, it is like high school in a way. There's lots of cliques. There's certain people that you didn't get along with, or people that didn't like you for certain reasons or whatever, So you did have to be careful about that. But in general, it does feel a little bit like you have tons of people you can just go play dodgeball with. That was one thing we did a lot. We just get a bunch of the people together in the back of the church and just go and play dodgeball or something. Things like that definitely is nice. Like, I feel like mankind is just very social. And so that's one thing that was nice about it, just being able to talk and socialize with a bunch of different people. So.
I thought of another question that was kind of going with my last question, but I heard that, like, you guys aren't really supposed to eat out and stuff because Zupas you guys don't own Zupas.
Mm-hmm.
So you say that you saw a lot of order kids there, but, like, when we took your half-brother out on that road trip, remember when we went to my parents' house, he was saying, like, he'd never been to, like, Subway before, and he'd never been to this before. And so it's like, so some kids are...
Well, that's another thing that it's like they don't often live, like, I guess, so it's tough because you know what a Molly Mormon is, right?
Yeah.
It's a little different when it's like someone that's a real goody-goody versus someone that's just doing the bare minimum, So it's like, it's not like it's a rule necessarily. Well, that's the thing, though. It is, though, because the rule that they link that to is if the order doesn't have it, we don't need it. That was something they would say all the time in their memory jams. Just that was something they were supposed to live by.
I'm sure that wasn't completely true, because I'm sure they were still working towards stuff that they think they needed. So it doesn't mean that just because they don't have it, they don't need it, right?
Well, that's what they would teach. Yeah, just like that. If there was anything that enough people in the order needed, they were supposed to theoretically create that business. So like John's Marketplace. They needed a place to get their groceries, get their stuff, right? Okay. So they had these farmers start like a milk farm to get their milk. They started their own little grocery store. And they theoretically would say, like, get all your stuff from there. That's if you're a good order member, you get it all from that little market. And then eventually, obviously, that market didn't have clothes. And they needed clothes. They were always wearing clothes. So eventually they started this place called True Value. And that was where the order had their clothing and stuff like that.
I wonder who designed those clothes. That's so interesting.
Well, not all of them. That's the funny thing. They didn't always make their own clothes. Way back in the day, they did make their own clothing. But like right now, True Value simply buys their stuff from like probably Amazon or somewhere and then sells it in their little True Value store. That's the order store. And order members come and buy it from there. So it's just, I don't know. It's like weird for them to even say that because even things like that, they're buying it from outside factories, that aren't order members making it, and then selling it to their people. So it's like, it's just another business within their group. So I don't know how, I don't know. It's just weird that they have that rule, but.
That's interesting. So that kind of leads into one of my other questions is like, was it, I don't know, was it hard to kind of, did you feel like you were a part of the outside world when you were in the cult then? Because it's like, if you were saying, or if you felt like you couldn't go to all the other stores that normal people, or did you consider yourself a normal person? Because technically
we were the normal people. Everyone else was the weirdos. I'm sorry to say that, but you guys were super weird.
So somebody was weird when they went to the mall? Like that was a weird thing to do?
Yeah.
So what would you do for your fun time? What would be, you couldn't go to the mall,
you
couldn't go bowling?
We'd do stuff with each other.
Oh, okay.
Like that. Like my family had gone bowling a few times growing up, but like there wasn't an order place to go bowling.
Right.
So that was technically breaking the rules, I guess, But it's like, like 90% of like the fun things or like the activities were just with all of your cousins.
So you couldn't go to like Kearns? You couldn't go to swimming pools? You couldn't go to...
Well, that's the thing. We weren't. They teach not to, but we did. We did. So it's like it's funny. It's like almost impossible to follow the rules. So everyone breaks them. I mean, I'm sure there's some families in the order though that have never been to Kearns, never eaten out at restaurants, never done any of these things, and they were those Molly Mormons.
So you couldn't. You didn't consider yourself a member of the outside. You were. Oh, what's my question? Did you feel like you were a part of the outside world? I guess you did not feel a part of the outside world.
No. It was very different. Just like that. When I went to Kearns, then I remember it being very strange seeing so many outsiders there, Okay. It was always like we would try to just sit by our family or do our own little thing. And like, it was even sometimes, kids would just come up to me and talk to me. And I remember it was weird. It was like, these are outsiders. Like, I don't know how to really handle myself.
Which is funny because you're such a people person now. I can never see
you.
Well,
now though, but if you see me on Escaping Polygamy, like, I was weird. Like, I would have been so hard to have a conversation with. You would have just thought that something was wrong with me. I swear.
I don't know. That's funny.
I've definitely learned a lot and have grown since I've left, for sure.
Well, I feel kind of privileged that I've kind of had to see you're growing up firsthand, like, because you came not straight to my house, but kind of, and we kind of like
well, you've known me the most throughout the whole process, so it is really cool.
It's interesting. I don't see you as like weird then, but I was probably just a weird teenager myself too. We're all weird, I guess. But interesting. Okay.
Maybe I can read a couple
go ahead,
comments because few people asking about the comfrey. Just don't worry about it. Stay away from it. It's just, I mean, you can Google it. If you Google comfrey, like, it's just this green plant that comes up. It's, Denise shared a good point. There are some, like, herbal or, like, how does she call it? There's some uses of the plant, but it's not supposed to be, digested. You're not supposed to take it internally. You can use it on, like, the, outside of your body, and there are some benefits. Cami says, yeah, comfrey can be, topical like sunscreen, but you shouldn't eat it. So, yeah, that's a good point. Sarah says, that's Abigail. Oh, some people are asking who you are. Yeah, This is Abigail. She's been in a few of my videos before.
I'm his cousin.
So, yeah.
His actual cousin. Just cousin.
Yeah, so my mom's brother is her dad. So, yeah.
Our parents are siblings.
Cami says the whole order played baseball. Oh, yeah, that was a big thing. They had baseball leagues and tournaments with all of the different order members that we all played. And that got pretty competitive, honestly. Because we didn't play... I mean, basketball is huge in the group now, but I don't feel like we played a whole lot of sports. Baseball was a huge one, and then dodgeball. And now basketball's getting pretty big in the group, but I didn't really play it much when I was there. But yeah, they still do things to keep them all entertained and doing stuff. It's kind of interesting, but...
That's all the questions you kind of want to read?
One more. Let's see. Christina says, Eskel, is that because of the group made you like that to fit in, or were you depressed? I definitely wasn't depressed. I mean, I had a depressed... If I would describe the most depressed time of my life was probably, like, right before I left and during my leaving process of leaving the order. Because I remember right before I left, I just questioned everything and was getting no answers. Anytime I tried to, like, discover my personality or like just be myself, I remember getting shut down a lot or being like not welcomed. I wasn't being very accepted as trying to just be myself, really. And so I remember being very depressed about that. I remember questioning just my entire life and everything, and it just really stumbled into this depression. And then when I first left, I remember being really hard too, because I didn't just get all my answers once I left. I still had to go out and find them. And I remember it was hard. It was a lot of work, but I was very determined. And I think it just got better from there. And so I definitely went through that. But no, I don't think I was this awkward, weird kid just because I was depressed. I think I was constantly growing up in an environment with all of my cousins, with these people that thought exactly like me, that like treated me a certain way, that was what I was used to. And then leaving that was hard. And I was like always worried of offending people. I was always unsure of how to think or what was socially acceptable and things like that. So I was just afraid to talk. I was just more quiet and just kept to myself a lot more. So I think that's why I was such an awkward kid when I first left. But that's hopefully crazy. Not anymore. Still a little bit. I'm still learning and growing, but I think that's a part of the fun.
So kind of going along with what you were saying, do you think, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's leaving who kind of needs a foundation? Like, what kind of a foundation can they have? I kind of have like two questions on this.
Okay.
So kind of answer that one first, then I'll ask my next one, I guess.
Okay, so like what would help people create a foundation when they leave, kind of?
Yeah, what makes them not feel so lost, I guess? Or is there a way to not feel so lost? Because, I mean, I guess you are, in a sense, lost, and so you're trying to find a foundation. So is there any foundation to be had, I guess? Because one of my fears is that, you come from some sort of structured thing, and then you just kind of, what do you go to? How do you find, I guess that's up to you, huh? That's just kind of, you go, one thing's not right, so now how do you find your way? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I kind of get the idea of your question. And I think to start, I would definitely say don't expect it to be black and white. Because one thing that I did that was wrong when I first left was I thought there was one specific golden answer that I was looking for. Because in the order, they love the idea of that they know. They know what's going to happen when you die. They know all the answers of the afterlife. And so they're like, I'll just tell it to you. We know it. And so when you leave and you don't believe they're made up answers anymore, then you think you have to find these really well-defined answers, just like how the order used to give them. But really, I think you got to be way more open-minded. You have to be very understanding, and you got to kind of enjoy the process of discovering that for yourself and learning new things. And so I think really if you're trying to like figure out where to begin, it's really just being more open-minded and learning from other people, being able to see why other people believe what they believe, what their perspectives are, and how they came to those conclusions. Because to me, that's one of my favorite things. I love it when people have different beliefs than me or different answers, especially when they can tell me why, when they have a well-defined reason why they believe what they believe. So I think that's a big starting point.
Was there like when did you feel like because you were saying you were kind of depressed and you kind of felt like you were unstable when you left? When did you finally start to feel like okay, like back in your normal rhythm of things, and you just like, how long did it take you, or was there a certain moment in your?
Ooh, that's a great question.
You just felt like you got it, or you still feel lost and you want to go back? I'm just kidding.
No, it definitely took a while. I would say though. So here's the thing: there was always different things because the first month was probably really hard, and I probably dealt with a lot of depression, but I also would wake up many times and be like, I can do whatever I want. I have so much freedom. So like there was still an excitement that came from it all. Like, can you imagine if you theoretically had to live by every single rule that a religion had, and you were doing that your entire life, and then just all of a suddenly you could now do whatever you want. It was 100% up to you. Just imagine the type of weight that would be lifted, how you would feel, It was so cool. I feel like I just had like such an excitement. And so even though it was a struggle and I was going through some depression, I still had great days. I still had a lot of fun, like trying new things out, discovering my own answers. And so I kind of forgot what your question was, but
no,
that's one of the things that I loved about the first leaving.
So, forgive me if this is a big assumption, but like maybe is that one of the big problems then is because they think that, okay, now I can do anything that I want. They don't give themselves their own kind of boundaries. You know what I mean? Because they still have to have some sort of
Well, yeah,
value.
if you don't give yourself a moral compass, then yeah, there's so many people that leave the order and they get into hardcore drugs or they just, go crazy with whatever. And it's like that can be tempting, but to me it was like I was just excited to like be able to go out at midnight or like, go out 2 a.m. and just go to a restaurant and just have fun. Like any little thing like that. And it's just like the freedom you get to just be able to make friends with anyone you want. Like one thing, like this sounds so funny, but in a lot of movies, people go to coffee shops and they just are best friends with the workers of the coffee shop, right? To me, the idea of that was so foreign, but I craved that. I wanted so bad to experience that. So for me, I found my favorite restaurant and I would just go there and become a regular and learn the workers' names and just like kind of try to be more social with them. And I remember that was the coolest thing.
What
just something as
restaurant was
simple as that. At the time, I really liked Panda Express, so I was doing it with that and I thought it was really fun.
That's cute.
But
That's really cute. Okay. So back to our other question. So I'm curious, and you saying that people couldn't, or you guys couldn't do normal things. Was traveling one of those not normal things? You guys never traveled because that was kind of a.
In general in the group, yeah, because first of all, even if you did travel and like figured out a way to make it work with the whole like with the one above you and stuff, then you still couldn't leave for more than a week because you always had to be in West Valley for Sunday because you couldn't just go to church where they have other locations. There's only one main location, and so trips would rarely ever be longer than a week. I can't think of a time I ever went on a trip for longer than a week. Other than, I guess, I do remember going to work on the farm, and I'd be there for a while, but they had their own little makeshift church on the farm, so that was different. But yeah, traveling was extremely rare, and like that, a lot of the Molly Mormon families basically never travel, because first of all, like, how is that helping build the kingdom? That's just going to waste money. You need to turn that money in instead of spending on the trip, So it's like, a lot of them really don't travel, but of course, people still travel. I went to Disneyland when I was a little kid, so like, they still do stuff.
Do you feel like you were looked down upon for going to Disneyland and stuff? Because, like, I mean, again, a big assumption, but I feel like your mom is kind of like my dad, where we like vacations. We like going to hotels. Like, that's fun for us. But, and so that's just kind of like how your mom was like, kind of. And so it's like, was your dad kind of maybe seen as not so good for giving into that, maybe?
Maybe in a way, but it was like, I remember it being like, if I were to tell, like, one of my friends in the group, oh, I went to Disneyland, then if they were, like, from one of those really good families, they'd be like, oh, well, like, you guys are wasting your money, or, like, they would kind of, like, think their own things. But I feel like a lot of the times, then, if it was my family making the decision, I couldn't really get in trouble, They wouldn't go to me and be like, oh, well, you're a bad kid for going to Disneyland, or even wanting to go to Disneyland and stuff. But they would do stuff, like, in lessons, they'd be like, talk about how it's such a great thing for you to not need all of these worldly things, not needing to go to amusement parks and stuff like that. So it was really weird because they would often, it felt like very contradicting because like I was a kid, I liked Disneyland, and so that's just how it was. And then when they would teach those things, they would just be like, me as a kid, I would just be like, whatever, you're weird, okay. But then I would still like Disneyland. So I feel like there's a lot of people in the order that are that way. Yeah. But they still teach that, like, you shouldn't like the worldly things. So
isn't that enough justification, basically? It's like, well, I like it. So I guess you're not supposed to think about yourself, huh? So that'd probably be a good thing.
Yeah, they would turn that on you and be like, well, that's selfish. You shouldn't.
You shouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
What if you said, like, well, I'm doing it for research, or I'm doing it to learn more about the world? I don't know.
Well, a lot of people do that. Just like, for example, there is a family in the order that, like, moved to, like, Pennsylvania or something, and they have this whole reasoning behind they basically had to justify it, otherwise the order would have shut it down right away. But they did something like they're going to some medical school or something, and they're going to start their own clinic, or I don't know exactly the reasoning, but they had to justify the whole reason for that family to get permission to go move there and do their own thing. So
interesting.
Yeah, there is some workarounds, but it's just funny that you have to have all of these reasons. You can't just be like, I like traveling or I want to live near the ocean. Like, that's not good enough. They would shut that down so fast. You can't just enjoy life. I'm sorry. It's like, man.
Do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read some of the comments and take a minute to do that?
Let's see what's going on. Oh, Cammie commented again. Let's see. I still remember feeling so free a few months after I left, just realizing that I can ride the public transit system anywhere I wanted or ride my bike to college. LOL, I didn't have a car. Yeah, Cammie shares that story a lot when she had so much fun just getting her own job, being able to work wherever she wanted to, and saving up money till she could buy her own car. And that was just such a fun experience for her, which is cool. Like, I feel like a lot of people would see that and, oh, she had to work really hard and had to buy it all on her own and stuff like that, and it would be tough. But because of the freedom she felt from it, she was able to enjoy it.
And actually see your money this time.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many simple joys in life that I almost feel like it's just disappointing and sad that order members don't get to enjoy those, you know?
And that's another point that you're saying, because like I remember you saying how much money you had, but you couldn't have access to it, and that was so weird to me, because it's like you should be able to have things you call your own, you know, and money being a big part of that, and to having to justify why you need your money, you know what I mean? I was like,
yeah, because then to me it also breeds like a bad system, because then you grow up feeling like, first of all, you're making this money almost for no reason. I mean, you're told it's to build the kingdom of God, but like if you don't get to see it, if you don't actually like get like satisfaction from that, then it almost like encourages you to work less and to not be as dedicated, you know? Whereas I feel like if they would let them enjoy working and enjoy like first of all the job that they have, so that they can choose it themselves and then have say over their money, then it would be a lot different. And this is another thing, a lot of order members are going to be like, well, duh, I can spend my money how I want. And yeah, some families can, especially Paul's kids. They can spend whatever the frick they want and no one says anything. But there's a lot of families that will get shunned or looked down upon for spending money or wanting to have access to their own money.
That's so odd. Because it's like, do you think just because Paul's not going to be mean to his own kids, or is it and he's more likely to be mean to kids that aren't his, or just because?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily Paul that enforces it. I think Paul's the one that goes on stage and says, like, oh, we're not saving enough, we're not making enough as God's kingdom. You guys need to save more. And then it's the one above the other that's like, hey, why are you guys spending so much money? Why do you need this thing or that thing, you know? Mm-hmm. And they start cracking down on each other. So it's almost like they're being preached to and taught to, like, I don't know, shun one another and be hard on one another, which is crazy because they're supposed to be loving and kind and be, you know, their brother's keeper and stuff like that. But really, they're just like they're
constantly seeing the bad.
And they're like they're what's it called when they're like the guard over them, basically, like the one that disciplines them and stuff or like shuns them. It's just honestly, weird dynamic.
Okay, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's such a bad characteristic of a leader, because you should never point out somebody else's flaws before pointing out your own. You know, I think a good quality of a leader is like, oh, I need to work on this, or I need to work on this, and other people will be like, oh, if he can work on it, I can work on it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're supposed to lead by example, right? And I feel like that's the most effective way to be a leader. But in the order, I feel like it's very different. But
interesting. Let's see. Did you already? Okay. Do you have any personal friends who are still in the cult that you still talk to? Don't say their names, but like, do you have friends that you can feel like you can reach out to, and like, how's that relationship if you do have one?
So this is something that's really interesting, and I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but there are so many order members that are there when they do not want to be. That's why, like, for example, I'm able to, I mean, it's hard to say that I'm able to, but like, I still talk with people in the group all the time. I still keep in touch with some of my old friends and talk with them and kind of like get updates about the group and stuff. And even like that, I have people reaching out to me. I was able to do an interview with an order member, and that's when I did that insider video. He asked me to take it down because he got a lot of heat for it, but like, there's lots of people that'll meet up with me and talk with me and like have all these questions because they don't like it in their order. They want to get away. There's so many people that are there because they feel trapped, not because they actually want to, not because they're actually building this kingdom of God. And to me, it's like, if I was this order member leader, I wouldn't want my people there because they feel like they have to be, or they're trapped, or they feel like they can't go anywhere else. You would think that you would want them to actually have a desire to be there. Like, because it's like if you had a company, you have all these employees, how ineffective and inefficient would it be if all these employees were there because they had to be? They couldn't check out. They couldn't go home. They were literally felt trapped to be there. It's like, I say this all the time, but the order is like a setup system that is basically destined to fail. It's just so crazy to me.
So was it hard leaving your friends?
Oh yeah. Well, to me, it was like I did not necessarily connect fully that my friends would just stop talking to me, because I remember we would sneak out at night. We were with these rebel kids in the group and stuff, and so I was like, well, we'll still be friends. We'll still sneak out and do stuff. But no, when I left, they were like, oh, if I get caught talking to you, I'm gonna be in so much trouble.
You're like, we didn't got caught anyway when we snuck out. So what did you...
Well, we got caught sometimes, but it was just like, it was so crazy to see them change so much. And it's just like, I feel like that was a huge eye opener too, because it made me realize that they weren't truly my friends. They were just there because of we happened to be the same age. We were in the same group.
I wouldn't say they're not necessarily your friends. I bet like don't downgrade that friendship. But I mean, they probably racked their world a little bit, because it's probably the first person they knew that actually was like, I'm not going to live this way anymore.
Oh yeah,
maybe it's just a
definitely thought, yeah. And that's the thing, they could have seen it in all different ways, and that's why I'm not like, I don't blame them. I don't like call them up and be like, why don't you talk to me or something.
Have you ever tried to talk to them about like, can we still be friends? Why can't we be friends? Like, have you ever tried to talk to them about that?
Yeah, I've definitely had conversations, and it's just kind of, I feel like it gets really hard on me, because they'll oftentimes be like, oh yeah, we can still be friends, and then nothing ever happens. They'll like blow me off all the time and stuff, and like anytime I invite them to stuff, they just won't show, and it's just kind of like, okay, I see how it is. They don't want to feel like they're the ones cutting me off, you know? So they'll oftentimes be like, oh yeah, we can be friends in secret or whatever, you know? But then it's like, okay, I guess.
Did you ever try to convince them to leave with you?
No. I never, ever tried to convince someone to leave until I started my YouTube channel, because I remember being like, if I leave, I'm at least going to be, like, not necessarily an advocate for leaving. Because I remember growing up all the time, it was, like, bad to leave, but then it was extremely bad to take someone with you, or, like, you know, to, like, preach against the church and stuff like that. So I remember being afraid to try and tell anyone else to leave, or to, like, talk about leaving to anyone in the group, because that was shunned, like, the most, for obvious reasons. They don't want people to think they have the choice to leave. But of course, after I was gone long enough, I realized that it's like, if I don't say anything, then they're not going to realize that I've learned so many new things out here, and that they don't realize that I can go back, theoretically. I could go back if I really thought, oh, I screwed up. It's like the devil's world out here. The order was really God's kingdom. Then I would be doing anything I could to go back, you know? I'd pay that $5,000 bill or whatever. But it's like, I'm out here and I'm like, what was I thinking when I was there? Like, there is no way that that's really God's kingdom. And so I just feel like I have a little bit of an obligation to share that rather than be quiet, because I feel like if I didn't tell anyone, I would be doing a disservice when people have questions, when people are in the group wondering, you know, what it's like on the outside. I feel like I have a great, unique life where I can share that and hopefully answer some of their questions, you know?
Do you want to read some comments before I go on to the next question?
I just got there. Here is this Eskel's girlfriend. No, this is my cousin Abigail.
I'm married.
She's been in a lot of videos. Yeah, your husband's never been in any, huh?
Should I tell him to come over here and say hi, just for fun?
If he wants to.
If he's listening. Liam,
I love it when your kids come inside and say hi. But she's got two cute little girls, Cozy and Danzel. In the last live I did here, then they popped in. We tried to get them to say hi, but they were really shy for some reason. But yeah, they're little cuties. She lives up here in Idaho, so I try to come visit her every once in a while.
And the reason why Eskel never wants kids. So I'm just kidding.
No, I love her kids, but they can definitely be a handful.
He's my babysitter right now. I'll return the favor for him one day, hopefully.
Nice. Casey still answered it for me. Thank you guys. Thanks for answering a lot of the questions. I love it when you guys are able to like have discussions in the comments. I mean, the order is something, but not this time. They should have a testimony. They want to be there. That's a good point. Amanda said she lost electricity. She's still sick. Oh, yeah. Amanda still wants to go live after mine, but we have no idea when it'll be because her apartment doesn't have electricity right now. So she's probably going to try to go to someone else's house.
Be live in the car today.
Who knows? We'll see. But she still will go live. She's been live consistently every week for 65 weeks now. So I'm sure she'll find a way to do it again. So what else? Let's see. Yeah, and they are also able to vent to you, Eskel. You are the example of success to them. Yeah, I think it's really cool because when I left, I didn't know who to turn to, but I luckily had my sisters. I could ask them questions, kind of peek into their lives and prepare myself for how to leave and stuff like that. So I hope that Amanda and I can kind of be that for people. And when they have questions, you know, we have kind of a social platform now that it would be very hard to not notice us, you know? So that's kind of the goal, to be able to be the voice, be an advocate for those who are being oppressed or who are struggling in these environments that are really controlling. So
if I were to put a word in for that, it's not like just for your character kind of. I mean, obviously you're not going to put yourself in positions that's going to hurt you, but I mean, just in general, if anyone, not even about the cult, like if someone genuinely needs help, you're genuinely like, if you can help, you'll help. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Like, don't ever feel like he's not going to be mean to anyone.
That's why I love the organization Holding Out Help, because I feel like Amanda and I are able to get a lot of people and allow them to reach out to us and ask us questions. But it's not like we have a ton of money or we have all these houses for people to live in, you know. But Holding Out Help is literally an organization that we're able to work with and connect these victims to, so that they can get the proper help that they need, that they can get the proper like therapists that they need, or even sometimes they'll even help them with schooling and stuff like that. You know, there's just so many resources out there that people sometimes don't know about, and I love that we're able to learn and connect people with those. So
okay, can I ask another question? Or you?
Yeah, you're good.
So I want to know something that you kept a secret from your parents when you were in the cult that wasn't a big deal. Like you probably didn't need to. It's so dumb, but you had to keep a secret.
Funny. Yeah, because there was one time where, and I actually got permission to go to this haunted house, but I don't know if my parents knew the full story. But I went to this haunted house, and it was just with a few of my siblings and then a few of our friends that were outsiders. And we were going through the haunted house. I remember one of the girls that I had gone, she was in a couple of my classes, and we went through one part of the haunted house, and we ended up holding hands. And I remember being like, I thought it was so bad, first of all, but in the moment I was like, wow, this is really cool. I loved it. I blushed like crazy. I thought we were gonna get married. I thought way too much of it. But I remember like telling myself that I was gonna take that to my grave. I would never talk about it. No one's gonna find out unless we end up married or something, like I don't know. But I just thought it was the biggest secret ever. And then once I left and actually started dating people and realizing that that's not the craziest thing ever, then I realized that there was really no reason to keep that a secret. But
nice.
In the group, though, that was a huge deal for sure.
That's a funny one. Okay, what is the biggest thing that was hard for you when you left? Like, that was just hard to get over? Biggest transition?
To get over? Well, like I said, mentally, you always have a hard time with, like, knowing who you are, knowing what you want. And the group is so good about, if you're leaving, you're going to die, you're going to go to hell, your salvation is on the line. So I really think that was the hardest, because once you can be confident that you're not going to burn and be in eternal damnation for the rest of your life, it's a lot easier to go at life a little less stressful, you know, and to not worry too much about it. And so I think that was the first thing to get over, to not constantly be afraid of damnation and thinking that all the things that they said is going to be right and stuff like that. So that definitely took, I think, the biggest.
So feeling like you were a failure, basically?
A failure, I guess, or like, I don't know, like, because like,
well, you had to know you were doing something right? You had confidence in what you were doing?
Eventually,
or
yeah.
you just wanted to figure out what was...
Well, it's like, I wasn't confident in what I was doing. I was just confident that the order was not right. So it's a lot easier to be like, to find the flaws in a group than to actually find like what you're doing, or like to believe that what you're doing is the right way that God wants you to live, you know? So it's just a lot easier to know that, okay, the order does not have it. The order is missing so many things that I believe that I should be living, right? And so that was enough for me to at least take that leap of faith and take that step of leaving this toxic environment and realizing, first of all, that it was toxic. And then after that, I had to kind of come to my own, agreement or determination that I could figure out what really would be right for me. And for the longest time, you kind of feel like you might go to hell, And a lot of people describe it, like, even if, though in the back of our minds, we think maybe we'll go to hell, but we're already going to go there in the order because we know that it's wrong. We know that it's not the way that we want to be. So it's like, if that was the alternative, then it's like, okay, we'll go to hell to be able to leave and have the freedom that we want and stuff like that. So
interesting.
Yeah. But, I love Andrea's because she's like, I'm gonna butcher it, but she said something about like, if when I leave I'm gonna go to hell, that's fine because being in the order was hell, because they got their own problems for sure. So yeah,
it's interesting that some people don't feel that way. I wonder what the difference is, because some people are so convinced and others are not, which is fine. We all have our title and it's your own opinion, but so what is your biggest takeaway maybe from your cult experience?
Ooh.
If you could say.
That's hard to say. Biggest takeaway? I mean, I feel like I am still constantly learning, and I love the idea of, like, if you saw my live with Calvin, I like that when people leave such an oppressive environment, then their just favorite thing is to accept that they don't know anything. And Calvin's the perfect example because he shared a lot how he doesn't know necessarily what he believes. He just knows that there's so much to be learned. There's so many great things out there that it's like, why limit yourself? Why not allow yourself to learn and grow and continually progress? And so if there's any, like, I guess, golden nugget that I've taken away from all this is to be able to enjoy that process of not knowing. Be okay with not knowing that when you die, you're going to be taking off a VR headset or something. Like, you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know exactly what's going to happen in the next life. And you should be able to enjoy discovering new things and cultivating your own moral compass, your own beliefs, your own ideas of how this world works and what you want out of it. I think that's been one of the funnest things for me, for sure. So
I like that.
But yeah.
That's good. Okay, this is kind of a funny one. But did you ever get annoyed with my questions when we would talk? Because I felt like I just had so many that we would... I say this all the time, but we would talk literally all night until the sun came up. I would go and hide for many nights, or I just question after question. Did you ever get where you were like, oh my gosh, shut up?
Well, to be honest, and I think we've opened up so much that you'll be able to handle this, and I'm sorry if it's harsh or anything, but when I first left, I really didn't like it, because I remember, like, I was so used to being secretive. I bet in the beginning I might have, like, not told you the full truth, or like maybe not given full answers and stuff, because I was so unsure. It was so new to me telling people about all this that, like, it made me very uncomfortable. But now that I've been out and I've had all these experiences and seen it actually inspire others and help others find answers to their questions, or at least find ways to more fully enjoy the process of discovering new things, now I'm way more open about it. I enjoy it a lot more. It's just a way better experience, for sure.
Why are you saying that that's a bad thing to be embarrassed? Or not embarrassed, sorry, that you weren't comfortable talking about it? That's not...
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing. That's just how it was. Like, I always reference to the Escaping Polygamy episodes. Like, I was so awkward. I would, like, answer as little as possible because I just didn't like talking about it,
Interesting. Do you think in some way it was good that we talked about it then? Or
yeah, no, I guarantee you that helped me to more quickly get used to and comfortable with talking to people about it. Because when I first got my very first job outside of the polygamous group, then I didn't tell anyone I was from a polygamous group. I just kept it quiet. I tried to fly under the radar, just do my own thing. I still try to, like, make friends and stuff, but, like, I would do similar things to what I did in the order. I would just lie and, like, make up some religion that I'm a part of, or, like, to fill in my gaps of my past with other things. But then once I realized that I liked being real and open with people, and that people, people are more understanding than we oftentimes think. And that's when I started being way more open and really enjoying to share my story with people. So
I remember being super shocked. Like one of the things that, because like at our age, we were concerned with like other things, basically any other thing besides getting married and having kids. And it was weird that all your friends at the time, friends that I personally met and hung out with, that's the only thing they were really focusing on. Like I was like, oh, how is so and so? And you're like, oh, he really just wants to get married. And I'm like, now? Like,
and he was
that's
probably
just weird.
like 14. He wants to get married so bad.
Well, it was just weird. It was like, I mean, there's more to life than this. I mean, I was baby hungry too. Don't get me wrong, but it was like, that's your only goal. I didn't understand. You know, I was like,
not
okay,
the
well,
only,
has
but
he...
that's the one they push hard.
Yeah,
with.
well, that's the thing. Is weird how much they talked about just getting married and having kids. Which I mean,
it's definitely not a normal thing, but yeah, I remember wanting to have tons of kids, and it's funny too because if you would have asked me, even when I was in the cult, if you would have asked me the specifics, you could have learned and realized that maybe I didn't really want that many kids. But if you would have asked me like, how many kids do you want? I would tell you the stereotypical. I want as many as I can have. I want to have 3 wives. I want this and that. But then if you would ask me like, oh, do I want to, take care of each of those dozen kids individually? Do I want to make time for all of their sports that they're doing? I would have probably been like, well, actually, like I would have reconsidered. I feel like,
Did you have a plan? Did you actually think of a plan, like how you were going to fit all that in? Like,
no, there was no like planning it out. There was no thinking ahead. There was just wanting to do what they told me to. Wanting to be obedient, wanting to be a good kid, and make sure my daddy actually loved me because I was doing all the things he told me to. And so it was just more
have
of
goals,
like,
but don't make them realistic.
Yeah, it was just trying to please all the people around me without actually giving it any consideration or actually pondering it.
So what did you think life with 3 wives would be like?
Well, if you would have just asked me that direct question, I would just tell you it would be magical. It would have been exactly what God wanted. It would have been like beautiful and great. But then if you would ask me any specifics, I probably could have connected and been like, well, it'd probably be a lot like my dad's life, and his life kind of sucks. He's been kicked out of multiple of his wife's homes. He has like very little personal connection with his kids, and it's like he rarely gets time to truly connect with them. He's constantly being like, I even feel like I've seen him getting in trouble from the one above him for not like being the perfectly spiritual husband he's supposed to be and stuff like that. Like, I feel like he's got a really rough life. I don't feel like I would want to copy and paste that into my life. So
that kind of leads into my next question. What do you wish your relationship with your dad was like? What do you wish your relationship with your dad was like then versus how it is now, I guess?
Yeah.
That's kind of 2 different questions, but what do you want your relationship with him to be like?
Well, what I want versus what I wish it would have been in the past are very different.
No, like what do you want? Let's just talk about now actually. So what do you want your relationship with your dad to be like right now versus how it is right now?
Right now, all I want is for him to let me be me and accept me for who I am. I feel like he makes it so hard for me to just be able to express myself around him. And I've gotten so comfortable with who I am that I'll still weave my way into the house sometimes, and he'll happen to be there, and I just will talk with him, and like, I feel like I won't do anything to like try to like rile him up or anything, but he always seems to just get really upset or find things that I say on these videos for him to get mad at me about. And sometimes he gets so upset that he'll try to kick me out of the house and tell me that I'm not welcome. And I just hate that. I wish so bad that he could just understand that I'm not going to be the good, perfect order kid that he's wanted me to be. I'm going to be my own individual person. I'm going to be myself, which is very different. I'm going to believe very different than what he does. But I'm not going to try and like tear him down. I'm not going to like go and try and get him put into jail. I'm not trying to necessarily beat him down as a person, even though I still am an advocate for people leaving the group that he's in, and I'm always going to be that. But I'm not trying to like have a horrible relationship with them. I'm not trying to like necessarily beat him down. I'm just trying to point out some of the flaws that I see in the group. And for me, the examples that I personally have seen in my life are from him. So I do point out his mistakes and the fact that he got kicked out because I grew up with you as a dad. And that's the experiences that I've personally had. So I feel like I get to share those personal experiences because I had to live through them. I had to see you hitting my younger siblings and go through what that felt like, you know? And so I'm going to share that because that's the truth for me. And I just wish that he would be able to understand that and just kind of like let it be, you know, rather than when he gets heated and gets upset, then he gets really mad at me. He tries to get aggressive. But like, there are sometimes, like, there was a Christmas a while ago where I saw him and we had Christmas dinner and he just let things be and he didn't say anything. As long as I don't like recently say anything that triggers him, then he'll kind of just let me be and he'll try to, you know, be the good order member and be a peacemaker like he's supposed to be theoretically. But then if I say anything that he doesn't like, or I don't know, if he's just upset that day, then he'll just go off and he'll just be really mean. And I just wish he wouldn't. That's all.
Do you ever try to ask him questions, or you just try to avoid it?
Yeah.
Avoid it.
Well, I try to. Right now, I'm at the avoiding stage because every time I've tried to ask him, then it gets really heated and he gets upset and it turns into an argument. So it's like I try really hard, and like if he was down to just have a civil conversation and not get heated, not to take things personally, you know, to be able to separate himself from the discussion that we're having, then I feel like we could talk things out. But I feel like oftentimes then he gets so heated and so upset because he feels like I'm attacking him personally when I am oftentimes separating myself from it. I understand that my childhood was different, that my upbringing was this unique upbringing, and he taught me exactly what he knew, what his dad taught him, and I try to separate that. I understand that he was raised a certain way, so he views it that way, but I just want to have these conversations, or right now I just want to avoid them and not fight in general, but it's like, I don't know, if we wanted to have that civil conversation, my goal would just to be to help him to see from my point of view and understand, like, what I am asking for is not unreasonable. I just want to be able to share my story and live a different life than him. And I feel like that is not unreasonable. What he wants, though, is me to disappear and become absolutely nothing, or to be a good order member. And I feel like that's too much to ask, you know? I'm my own individual. I'm going to, speak my mind. I'm going to share what I feel like is the truth. And so it's like, I mean, I think maybe we both are seeing it, like we both want unreasonable things, maybe, but I can't help but feel like I'm not asking for too much, I guess, but I don't know.
So you want a good relationship with him?
Well, sure, if that was possible, but I feel like I'm even beyond that. I just want us to not have a horrible relationship, basically, at this point, so.
Okay, you want to read some questions I found?
Oh, yeah. Sweet. We're at 91 people watching live right now. Thank you guys for watching. Let's see. We've got a lot of comments. People definitely should check out Holding Out Help. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Denise. I usually will have it in my description when I update these videos after the live portion. Rachel and Verl watches these. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of my siblings watch it. Rachel oftentimes will even comment. Cammie's commenting right now. And then Verl, my dad, yeah, he definitely watches a lot of these. And the funny thing is, I've literally heard like my mom or other order members be like, your dad doesn't watch these. He wouldn't waste his time. But then in those heated conversations that I've had with him, he knows about all the times that I've said he's been kicked out of his wife's homes and things that I talk about in these videos. So I know that he watches them. So it's kind of funny. But good, and he can't do a damn thing. Oh, they're saying, hi, bro. Oh, man, that's funny. Is Amanda going live today? Yes, she should be. We still don't know about the time. What I think of Verl will be kept out of the chat, moderating myself. Verl is still a person with feelings. We don't have to like Verl, but he still deserves to be treated with respect. Yeah, like I say, his dad treated him the same way. His dad taught him, he's just trying to be like his dad, which is, it's sad that his dad was so unloving to him and so harsh on him too. And I feel like he's just reiterating that, which sucks. But I hope to break that chain, I'm not just going to be like, oh, I'll be like my dad, and if it's a bad thing, he'll get punished in the next life, I'm going to accept it, like take the responsibility myself to determine if raising kids that way is really a good thing or a bad thing, or, live my own true life. But, ooh, Cammie says, I still sometimes don't feel up to telling a stranger my whole backstory. So I will just say I'm from a branch off the Mormon church, which is technically true, lol. Yeah, we could technically say we are FLDS, Mormon fundamentalists, because that's exactly what the order is, but that would just get confusing because Warren Jeff's church is more known as the FLDS. So yeah, so just to like specify it, I always call it the Kingston Polygamous Group or the order. But Cami, is that okay? I think it would be hard to tell people and not wanting have them judge for no reason. Yeah, that's one thing I was afraid of, but I am so surprised that it's like so many times I get positive feedback when I tell my story, and like you always think someone's gonna be all like scared off, I bet, or something like that. But I feel like there's been way more often that they are fascinated and they want to ask more questions, and you actually have good, meaningful discussion about it. So, to me, I really don't mind sharing my stories with even complete strangers. But let's see. And Christina says, Eskel, you holding a mirror up to him so he sees a real person. Well, hopefully it's beneficial in some way. I doubt Virl could do that. If he were to look at the order and all the various ways it is horrible, it would be too much for him to accept. It is too much for him to deal with. Yeah, that's a really good point, Casey, because I've shared multiple times that he is so deep into it, even if he realized the order wasn't truly what he wanted to live, what would he do? He's just going to leave 2 of his wives? He's going to leave all these kids and like totally try to change up his entire world, have all of his brothers get mad at him, and have, you know, his whole family network be all upset at him and like, you know, fight back at him, and he would have nowhere to turn to. Like what would he do, you know? His whole life is surrounded by order members and living that order lifestyle. That, I mean, it's possible, and I would definitely admire him if he, you know, wanted to make a change. Like, it's never too late to realize like you can be a different person or you can change or try and do better, but he definitely is in a situation where that would be almost too hard, you know. At least it would be seem easier to just look the other way when you see flaws in your religion or your organization rather than try and address them and accept that you might be wrong. But yeah, sorry, that was long. Okay. Any other questions?
I do have a few more. I know this is getting long.
No, this is great. I love this. This is awesome.
Do you ever worry about how are you gonna approach your background to your future kids? Like how do you ever think about that?
Oh, that's a good question. Dang. I don't think I think about this too often because I want kids for sure, but I guess I always just think of it as like in the distant future, you know. But I like to think, and I'm fully open to, you know, talking with someone that's more experienced with kids, or, you know, like a child expert or whatever, and getting a better perspective or idea on all this. But to me, I love the idea of just being open and honest, and just any questions they have, just share it with them. Let them know that my background was kind of crazy, that their grandma and grandpa are polygamists and they live an interesting lifestyle and all of that, you know, and just letting them all know and let them feel comfortable asking about those questions and learning about it. I feel like that's the approach I would take as of right now. So.
That's really good. Kind of what we were talking earlier about this. Like if I asked if you were worried about telling like a significant other your background, like how she would take that if she judged you for that, and you basically just said, what'd you say?
Yeah, I like to just be open and honest with them. I will admit though, like I've gone on dates with girls before and have been a teeny bit hesitant about it, but what my general rule of thumb is, I just will let the first date or first, you know, time going out with the girl to just really get to know them and not bombard them with, you know, that my whole backstory and everything. And then if things go well and there is a second date, that's usually when I take the opportunity to share my whole background. And I kind of like vent to them and unload my whole past with them, because to me it's like, this is who I am, this is a part of my past, this is like everything you need to know. I don't want to start a relationship and start building something and then you realize it, you know. I want to be open and honest and let you just know everything about it, and then, you know, if that works, then we can still, you know, become something. So.
You also told me that in a way you're not too scared because like that's just you have that's just how you grew up. I mean, there's nothing you can really do.
Yeah, it's not like
that.
I could choose where I was born. You can't choose your upbringing, but you can choose where you are now and where you're going. So,
like that. Is there anything? Well, I guess let's see. So, if you could go back, did I already ask this question? For some reason, I feel like I did. What would you tell yourself, your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now? If you could tell yourself anything.
Ooh, dang, that is really cool. Because 17 was like that crucial moment, right as I was, starting to save money under the mattress, getting my exit plan all ready to leave the order and stuff. If I could have told him anything, I would have tried to tell him something to comfort him. Something along the lines of, like, if you could truly know how understanding and, like, forgiving, like, your creator or whatever, like, I guess God is, then you wouldn't be so afraid. Because I feel like the order paints this picture of God or the creator as this judge person that's going to judge every little thing that you do. But now I just love being able to see it more as this loving person. And like, it's hard to like define it. Like, I know a lot of people use like some spiritual essence or whatever. And I think it's just so important. If I could have told myself to not get so stuck on the fine lines of like, if this is good, if this is bad, or, all these little nitpicky things, and just told myself to really focus more on like the big picture, where you want to be, where you're going, and like what truly matters to you. Almost like, don't stress so much on what your beliefs are. Worry more about why you believe that, what brought you to get to those conclusions. Because then I feel like you'll do so much better at discovering and searching, because you're more focused on that, on the process of learning and cultivating your moral compass and your beliefs, rather than just being like, this is the answer and this is what I'm going to hold to and this is all that I'm going to keep for the rest of my life. Whereas I feel like the reason why you believe what you believe is so much more important. And so if I could have just said something along the lines of like, don't stress so much about it and like just be more understanding, then I feel like that would have caused way less stress leaving and going through the whole process.
That's cool. Does give, I think, a lot of hope for a lot of things in life. It's like, just hold on, it gets better.
Yeah, and just it helps you to be more hopeful. And I feel like you can never not have enough hope, Any situation you're going through, any struggle, having hope will help, It'll just give you more motivation and more excitement of life, that I feel like there's nothing that can be bad coming from hope. So
isn't that wild? I always said that. I think that's the coolest part about humans, is that we hope for things that we have no idea is actually going to happen. How do we know the sun's going to rise tomorrow? Well, we just have that hope. It's just like, it's crazy.
It's really fascinating. That's why I love having these deep conversations. And like my last live with Amanda was all about like what's real, what is reality, and we talked about the virtual reality headset. Like if you died and you woke up and it was just all a virtual reality like a whole video game system type of thing, like how would you feel, and would it still seem real to you? Like conversations like that fascinate me, because the world we live in is just so fascinating. There's so many experiences you have that just seem unreal and like out of this world experiences, and it's just super cool.
Yeah, how do you decipher between the real moments and not the real moments? Because it's like, if you feel it, it's real, but then what if it's not?
And how, when I think of my past, all of my past like experiences and trips and whatever, it feels just like how I remember dreams. When I have a dream, it's like just a distant memory, but it's like there. And so it's like how, like, it's just so fascinating how the world is all, it's 80 years of life, but it's all just a, one moment of your memory of all of these experiences that you've had. And so it's like, it's really slow but fast at the same time, and everything's happening all at once. And I don't know, it's just crazy. It's fun to think about, though.
Okay, I think this is my last question. We've been going for kind of a while. I'm sure I can think of more, but how has your time in the cult affected your relationships now? Like, do you, like, I guess, is it hard to let some of that trauma go, or is it like...
Oh, this is awesome. This is going to take a lot, because I like talking about this because I love being like super open and just like kind of direct when it comes to relationships. I think this would be the perfect one to, because it's going to be very personal.
Okay.
So if we take it to Patreon and kind of like deep dive into it, would that work with you?
Yeah, because you're already kind of gone a long time.
Yeah,
here,
we definitely.
So.
I'm sure we gone over an hour.
Heck, we could even make like a part 2 video of all the questions I want to ask you.
I definitely do want to do a video because you've been in a lot of my lives, but we've never done like an actual video. I think that would be really cool. I want to do
a funny video too with you, like
yeah.
a totally like not serious one.
That would be fun. We could even do like a challenge video or like a food eating video.
That's more up my alley. Just kidding.
Let's keep that question though because I was planning on going on Patreon after this, and we'll just kind of have a little more personal discussion if that's okay with you.
Well, I like this. Yeah, this is great. Thanks for letting me ask you questions.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Oh, John's here. That's so cool. John's able to comment as well. Well, thank you guys so much. We definitely have been going for quite a while, so I think we're going to call it good on here. But if you like these discussions and want to hear more or just see more of my adventures and journey that I've been on, go over to my Patreon. We'll do a quick little video over there. We'll probably just do a live and continue from this one. But I've got tons of videos over there just like deep diving into other questions. And I even have like this dream series that I do on there that's really fun. But yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks for all of you guys' comments and being a part of the discussion. Sorry we couldn't get through every single one. But thanks for being here, Cammie and John as well. And just everybody. This has been really fun. I love it. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank